and welcome to episode 56 of the Rockies Now podcast. We are a Colorado Rockies podcast. Whether you're a Rockies fan or just a baseball person, you can follow us at Rockies Now on all of your favorite social media platforms: Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Thanks for joining with us today. Right here is co host Tom. I'm Steven. Uh, what the heck is going on in baseball, man? I mean, I feel like the last 48 hours, if not more than that, 72 hours have been just like crazy with Otani and with, Tovar getting extended, which we'll talk about, and then Nolan Jones. What's going on, man?
Well, there's a lot to go. Not just the Otani situation, of course. The series in Seoul, opening days a couple of days away, but also you've got to talk about what's going on with the Major League Baseball's the Players Associations. There's still there's so much dysfunction among just that group, not the owner side, just the Players Association side. Scott Boras is trying to be phased out. They got a new attorney involved with them, so it's been quite a last I would say 4, maybe 5 days. Mute.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Okay, so yesterday, uh, of course, with Nolan Jones, I saw the replay. Of course, for those who don't know, there was a foul ball hit Nolan Jones right in the leg, and at first I was like, oh no, this is going to be a serious injury. This might cause him to, I don't know, like get on the IL or something. This could be bad, like season ending, and and then the reports came out that he was able to move his leg in the dugout, which is good. And then this morning came out saying that he feels fine, that he felt fine, but the ball just barely missed his kneecap. I think it was either below or above his kneecap. So that's a good thing. But still, still very, very scary moment for Nolan and for a lot of Rockies fans. But he should be okay. And actually, according to reports, Thomas Harding came out today saying that he should be able to potentially avoid being injured on opening day. He should be able to play opening day, according to reports. So that's very, 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 very exciting, very positive to hear. And then, not to mention, just like an hour or two ago, news broke from the Rockies camp that they've extended Ezequiel Tovar through, I believe, 2029, and it's going to be an 8-year deal, $84 million. The Rockies are going to keep their guys. They're bringing their young guys together, kind of building that core, which is really exciting to see. And we've been talking about it all off season about the Rockies bringing these guys together, potentially extending some of these guys. And Tovar got extended today, so that's really promising and exciting to see as a Rockies fan. It's very fulfilling, and I think, like I just mentioned to you right before we went live on the air, is that Tovar is in a good spot, I think, and he's ready to become that next big star for the Rockies, along with Nolan Jones and Brenton Doyle. So just seeing this for the Rockies is again very fulfilling and very exciting as a Rockies fan to see some of these moves in the front office, building around these young players, which is exactly what the Rockies need to do.
I believe it was Nolan Jones himself who said he believes he'll be ready for opening day, which, again, it's his body. He's the one who knows what's best, how he's feeling. So if he's ready to go on Thursday, that's great news for all of us and definitely for the team. Because, of course, when I first saw it after the fact. I didn't see it live. And when you pointed out to me, I saw it. I thought, oh God, because I think it was like, as you point out, it hit above his knee. I think it hit right around his lower thigh area. But a knee contusion, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's a bone bruise. Again, it could have been a heck of a lot worse. And like we talk about, even when you wear the elbow pads, the ankle and foot guards on your feet, they're still exposed areas of your body. You can still get hit, whether it's from the pitch or a foul ball. So again, it's great news for us. And yeah, just looking at the right here, this is from Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post. The total, I guess not the terms of the deal. It's a 7-year deal worth $63.5 million with a club option for 2031. That will increase the total value of the contract to $84 million. So potentially he could be in a Rockies uniform until 2031. I already saw some haters out there, just like Zeke here pointed out. There's a lot. Lux pointed out there's a lot of Zeke casual fans hating on Zeke. I saw somebody say, what was it? Just give it 3 or 4 years and they'll trade him just like Nolan Arenado. Just whatever. Again, I think it's great. He showed his skills is on the defensive side, being a Gold Glove finalist. And again, nobody's perfect in their rookie year. Nobody really is, but he has room to grow. And like I said before, this Rockies core is starting to take shape for the next contending team.
Yeah, and again, we're in a transition year where we're seeing a lot of these young players like Doyle, Jones, and Tovar get that call of like, hey, you're up, right? And yeah, it's a little disappointing to see some of these players, especially with the minor league camp. Drew Romo, Zach Veen, guys like that. Jordan Beck, who won the Abby Greer Award just today. They announced it. So basically, I think that's the MVP for spring training for the Rockies rookie, or one of the best players I think in the Rockies rookie camp. I think it's something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I mean the Rockies they're dedicated to building around this team, and I know there's been some questionable trades and moves over the last day or two. With I think this morning they got J.K. from the Philadelphia Phillies, and then of course with Greg Jones a few days ago as well. But I. Well, that's a discussion for another time. But again, it's very exciting to see Tovar is finally he's locked up, and so that's kind of a reassuring thing for a lot of Rockies fans. But one thing before we get into our season preview, where we start talking about what to expect during the season, let's talk about Shohei Ohtani, the big stuff over the last week or so. So for those who, I mean, y'all probably know what's going on, but just to reassure you guys, or let you guys know if you haven't checked up on it, where you guys been. Shohei Otani's interpreter, I believe, I'm just going to say his name, Ipe. Um, basically he got in debt because he was gambling with an illegal sports book in Los Angeles, or at least in California. I forget the guy that he was, doing business with in terms of the betting stuff. But anyways, he got in debt and basically was using Otani's money. There were, I believe, 2 recorded transactions from Otani's account that Ipe took money out of. And so, um, Tom, maybe you can iterate further, but basically, there's concerns whether did Otani know about the transactions, because if he did know about the transactions, that spells somewhat doom on Otani and his potential, Hall of Fame career. Because I mean, if they catch him, oh boy, watch out. It's not looking good for Otani. It's definitely not looking good for Ipe, who's already been fired by the Dodgers organization. But I mean, if Otani goes down, man, I mean, this is going to be a dark day in baseball. I mean, it's like somebody said today. It's kind of giving baseball a black eye. It's just not a good look.
It's just another scandal, and it's unfortunately right before opening day, and it's right after on the heels of him signing a record-breaking contract. Just to provide a little bit of context, everybody, everyone talks about DraftKings, FanDuel, all those legalized gambling outlets. Just to provide some context, only 38 states in America have gambling fully 100% legalized. California is not one of them. So, mind you, that is where Shohei Otani's season home is. That's where Ipe lives with him. So, in California, it is illegal for, again, any person, not athlete or otherwise, to put on a gambling bet in California. That's why the store, people are asking why Ipe go to bookie. That's why he went through this bookie. Illegal bookie, by the way, whose operation was raided by the FBI a few months ago. So, again, here's the thing. I just there's too many unanswered questions. I don't believe we have heard the full truth of this entire story. And again, I'm a little scared because I'm not scared, just I'm nervous because of what is going to be found. We don't know fully where the Shohei Ohtani is involved because again, Ipe put out 2 stories. First story was well, which one was the first one? The first story was he was given money by Otani to pay off the debt. That was in the ESPN interview. Then 24 hours later, they backtrack and say, "Oh no, the money was stolen from his account, and it was either way." So there's a paper trail you can follow with those. If Shohei Otani gave him money as a gift to pay off the debt, there's what's called a gift tax. So that would be subject to that tax in America. And now you go to the flip coin, it doesn't make sense that Ipe took money out of Shohei's account and wire transfer. Because here's something else, because a lot of us have gone through this, including me, from when I bought my house. When you wire transfer money, You have to get on the phone. They literally, the bank actually calls you to verify you're on the phone. I was on the phone, I think, for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, making sure everything was done, clean, all done through. So there's a whole process you go to when you wire transfer money. So that whole, now again, athletes do give power of attorney to certain people to help them manage certain things. There are athletes who give power of attorney to their significant other to help them with paying bills and all this other stuff. And or the one of the more infamous examples was Michael Vick actually once gave this woman power of attorney, and she ran a Ponzi scheme with using his money out of her house. Um, I can think of some other examples, but none off the top of my head. But again, this whole scenario just doesn't make sense to me. The truth has not come out, and again, it's unnerving because Otani is he's baseball star, and he's, whether it's in America or over in Japan and Asia, he's the bright star of the Major League Baseball. And if he is found that he's been implicated in a crime, this really is going to cause not just a rift for him, the Dodgers, but also the league and the sport as well. So we could be facing a pretty dark couple of months in terms of what the story will develop, because it's now becoming the number one story, not just in baseball, but one of the bigger stories in sports now.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't look pretty. We don't know much. I mean, we're just, baseball fans. I mean, ESPN, MLB, and the federal investigation. They're on it. They know more than we do. Obviously, we're not going to try to, uh, say this happened or whatever happened, but it just like you can tell that something's going on that we're just not being told the entire truth. And
this
so
this whole thing doesn't make
again,
sense.
we're going to have to find out, see what happens with the investigation. And again, this is not going to be 1 or 2 weeks. This is going to be multiple weeks, if not multiple months, of investigations, potentially trials. I don't know. But this overall, this is just a bad look for baseball, bad look for the Dodgers organization, and it just like it stinks, man. Because again, it just I feel like with the uh, with I feel like baseball was kind of going back to, I guess, relevancy, I guess. But then with this happening, and yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Otani going to the Dodgers. I mean, a lot of Rockies fans can agree with me with that, but he is so important to the sport, man. Like without Otani, I mean, guess what? You're gonna look at the ratings for MLB, and they're gonna go down, right? And it's not gonna be good for the sport. And it's a shame that this has happened, but hopefully this gets resolved and nothing too serious comes around it. But from what we've heard, um, it's not going to be good at the end of the day. But again, we'll have to wait and find out. But we're on a very dangerous track, and there's a potential case where Otani is banned for at least maybe for his entire career. We'll have to wait and see. But right now, it's just a bad time to be a Dodger fan, I guess, or a Otani fan for that matter. But I mean, you're still going to have a bunch of good players on your team for the Dodgers in case if Shohei does get suspended, let's just say for a year or a certain amount of time. But it's just like, yeah, we'll have to wait and find out. But anyways, I guess we can start getting into our season preview. Um, so I guess to get things going, so we're not going to be super specific about the team. I guess we're going to kind of look at the pitching. We're going to kind of look at the bullpen, the offense, that sort of thing. Just kind of look over and kind of give our assessment of where it's at right now. So um, I guess to get things going, I think one of the big things for the Rockies this year in 2024 is going to be the pitching, right? I mean, that's the question a lot of people have been asking. How will the pitching be this year? Is it going to be good enough? Is there any pitching on the roster? And I got to tell you, I think the Rockies rotation is in a better place to where it was than what it was last year late in the season because um, I mean you did have guys like Chase Anderson, you did get and then obviously Chris Flexen, he was kind of there as well, but it was just like it was heavy injury prone. A lot of guys were just ready to end the year. They were just you're out of the race for the postseason, so you're kind of like, okay, I just need to get my reps in, just want to finish healthy, do the best I can. Where now I feel like the Rockies they got Cal Quantrill, who had got roughed up yesterday against the Reds, so that wasn't fun to see, especially with the Nolan Jones injury scare. But Cal Quantrill, he'll be the number two starter, by the way. They came out today that he'll be the number two starter to start the year. Then they got Dakota Hudson off waivers from St. Louis. He's had a good pedigree in the past. He was one of the best rookies, I believe, in the 2020 season or 2019 season. He has good history, but again, over the last couple of years, he's kind of struggled as a starting pitcher with injuries and just command overall. Then you have Austin Gomber, and so the question is, can the rotation, be a step better than it was last year? I think it can. Just got to stay healthy. That's, again, we've been talking all offseason about this. Can the rotation, can the lineup stay healthy? Because that's going to be key. If the Rockies want to avoid 100 losses, the rotation has to be healthy. And I think, one of the promising things to see this spring so far is we got to mention Kyle Freeland. He upticked his velocity, I believe, from like 87, 88 on his fastball to I believe like 90. I want to say 92 to 90, 93, maybe even 94 on his fastball. Right, and so it's very promising to see. And I think Freeland, he's still is somewhat of a younger pitcher, and I think a lot of people are excited to see how Freeland does this year. So um, yeah, for me, I think it's just the big key for the Rockies. It's just to stay healthy, and because we can't afford another 100 loss season, especially after what happened last year with this team.
No, I mean, looking at the rotation, I do like how Bud Black lined it up. We're going Freeland, Quantrill, Gomber, Feltner, Hudson. I do think Kyle Freeland has earned the opening day start on the mound. He is their best starting pitcher, so it's definitely a well earned honor. Then going righty lefty between Quantrill, Gomber, I think is a good idea, and then putting Feltner, the young guy Feltner fourth, and then having the veteran Hudson anchored at the back, I think is the right move there. And then with Peter Lambert being the long man, when I look at the top three, maybe I would say I believe that Gomber, Quantrill, and Freeland, if each makes 32, 31, 32 starts, both have the ability to go 160 plus innings. I mean, Freeland in 2018 had 202 and a third innings. So yeah, this could be, I don't want to say necessarily the strength, but could be one of the strong points of this team, especially if some of the pitchers in this rotation do what they're best at, which, and for Freeland, Quantrill, and Hudson specifically, have an ability to keep the ball down and limit the fly balls. So Coors Field, ball flies further than anywhere else. So again, I do like this, how this is set up. And again, as you point out, it's always the key. Can it stay healthy? I mean, at one point last year, what was it, 12, 13 pitchers, I think, were on the injured list. So yeah, if it stays healthy and they each get anywhere between, if they all get above 30 starts, that'd be amazing. That covers a lot of innings for you. It makes Bud Black's job a lot easier when it comes to managing the bullpen. But it's wishful thinking. So we'll see. I am excited to see how Freeland does, especially like I said, he does seem to be 100% healthy with that uptick in velocity on his pitches all around. And I'm hoping it translates to success, maybe even a top 10 Cy Young finish.
Yeah, and not to mention Peter Lambert, he'll be a long starter. For those who might not know what that is, so basically, if there's a pitcher that's injured or just not doing well, let's just say in the third or fourth inning, Peter Lambert will be there to back him up. So that would be nice to see. I mean, I really like Peter Lambert. He's made big strides since his injury the last the last couple of years. Last year was kind of like the first full year where he was kind of healthy, and we saw some really good starts from him last year. There was a question for me. I was like, could I see Dakota Hudson being a long, starter? I guess kind of like Lambert. There's a potential that could happen. I mean, I do know that today I think the Rockies sent down Ty Block to the minor leagues, or at least in minor league camp, which means that he'll start in AAA to start the year. But I mean, there's even a case that Ty Block could be in there as well as a long starting pitcher in case of an injury. Hopefully that doesn't happen, barring that doesn't happen. But Ty Block is always there. I think Matt Cook, he's had experience, I believe, in that role as well. So there's a bunch of these guys, and I think again the Rockies, they need pitching, and I know there's a lot of negative comments about the Rockies trading, Joe Rock, and yeah, in some ways it's kind of head scratching with the move that they made, because it's like, wait a minute, don't we need pitching? But like we put out a few days ago on our story, the Rockies, they must see something in Greg Jones for them to trade Joe Rock. I mean, Joe Rock is one of their best left-handed pitching prospects. However, there was some concerns about Joe Rock with his fastball, with his spin rate. I think last year in Hartford, and I think a little bit in AAA, even though he was there for like very very brief stint. But I'm excited for Joe Rock, man. He's going to do well in Tampa. As I would like to say, I told somebody Joe is going to rock in Tampa. So there you go. Uh, but yeah, I mean, there's just, yeah, it kind of sucks to see him go because again, we've been hearing about Joe Rock since he was drafted a couple years ago, I believe in 2021 in the first round. But, Greg Jones, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, this guy has a lot of potential. I mean, he was a top, I believe, 30 prospect in Tampa Bay, in the Tampa Bay organization, which kind of tells you that's actually pretty good. However, a lot of people are kind of concerned that Greg Jones has fallen off a little bit because, again, he was drafted back, I believe, in 2019. It's taken a lot, bit for him to get to the big leagues, and he hasn't made his debut yet. But there's that concern there. But Jones, we've been told, has pretty good speed, pretty good defense, has some power there as well. So we'll wait and see. I mean, the Rockies again, they must see something in Greg Jones that we don't see. And the Rockies, they got Nolan Jones. I mean, I'll never forget when we traded for Nolan Jones. A lot of people thought we were getting Sam Hilliard 2.0, and it turned out that we got more than that, right? So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, the Rockies, yeah, they're going to still get pitching. I feel like this year in the draft again. This is a podcast for a different time, but the Rockies, they're going to go get pitching once again in the draft, and once the trade deadline comes, the Rockies are going to trade for pitching, and but again, the Rockies, they see something in Jones that, and what I mean by Jones, Greg Jones, not Nolan Jones, but Greg Jones, that they traded Joe Rock away. Again, kind of sucks to see it because as Rockies fans, we don't like to trade away guys that we kind of like and we're really excited about. But again, we had to give up Connor Joe a couple years ago, and we got what's his name? Um, I think Nick Garcia from the Pirates, yeah. And but yeah, I mean it's not fun to trade away a player that you like, a fan favorite, but sometimes you have to make the hard move to improve your ball club, I should say. So yeah, the starting pitching, keep an eye on it. Just again, stay healthy. It's not going to be good, but I think it can make an improvement from last year. I think it might be middle of a pack rotation. I mean, back in 2021, the Rockies, even though they had a poor season, they had Marquez and Sandatella, Gomber, Blake Street Gomber that year, and it was a pretty good rotation. So the key is just to stay healthy and fix on the command, because if they can get their command right, I feel like they're going to do pretty well. So. I guess moving to the bullpen very quickly. Um, I guess looking at the closer spot first, is it safe to say that maybe Justin Lawrence could be the closer for the Rockies? Because I feel like it's kind of up in the air, but I feel like it's kind of that time for Justin Lawrence to become the Rockies closer. I don't know. That's just my take. I feel like J Law has that potential to be a pretty good closer. And as a matter of fact, I put out a prediction well, I submitted a prediction post to Purple Row, and I said that my bold prediction was that Justin Lawrence was going to lead the National League in saves this year. So I don't know. We'll see. But do you have Justin Lawrence as the closer, or do you have somebody else?
I have Justin Lawrence. The only excuse me. The only I think the next big dilemma is who's the setup man going to be? Who's the eighth and maybe even the seventh inning guys? Because I think not to again say I don't like to say it's a lock because I don't want to say lock it in, but I think it's safe to say Justin Lawrence, in my opinion, if I was Bud Black, would be my choice. But then again, what you got to figure out now how. Like I said, the next thing you got to decipher, I think, is the bigger question: what is the bridge between starter to get to him when you have that lead? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, and
because you have a lot of
I think we
options.
reiterated
Mhm.
last week or a couple weeks ago about the bullpen last year really struggling in late in games, and of course a lot of it had to do with late in the season because of the dog days, and a lot of those guys were rookies. They were experiencing their first August and September in the career. Um, I think the bullpen could still be good. I mean, I really like Jalen Beeks, how we got him off waivers from Tampa early in the offseason. Lucas Gilbert, he'll be coming back pretty soon. And Tyler Kinley, he's back. He's going to have a full, healthy year. And I mean, there's a lot of good dudes on this bullpen. Um, roster. So there's some definitely some questions. I mean, um, can they have good command? Because again, that's a big question. I feel like that the Rockies have struggled, especially like both the starting pitching and bullpen. They've struggled with their command, and if they can control that, I feel like they're going to be in a much better place. Because again, I think the lab down in Arizona has kind of helped them, according to a lot of players, which is really good to hear. So again, if the bullpen can stay strong, I mean, again, we kind of talked about it earlier, but if the Rockies would have avoided, what was it, those 33 or 34 blown saves last year, the Rockies, they would have been a potential playoff team. I think was it like 90 plus wins or something in that range. So I'm not saying that the Rockies are going to make the playoffs or go on this crazy run in 2024. You're going to have games where it's going to be like, oh gosh, this sucks. We're down 18-1 or whatever. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen, but like, should there be those games, you're going to have them. But the Rockies, they need to cut those down from like, I don't know, like 30 to 15, if not less than that. You're going to get a lot more wins because it's crazy. Again, it's like just that one stat alone could really affect your win-loss total. So the bullpen, I think hopefully it stays together. Again, there's a lot of good dudes on that roster in the bullpen. Gavin Hollowell, who I just mentioned, I'm really excited about him. I think he could be a very solid piece. And then another guy that a lot of people are saying, he just needs to get his command right is Riley Pines, who we could see in the bullpen eventually this year. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to be in AAA. I don't know if we've heard. I think he's going to start the year in AAA. But I think that's going to be huge for him. If he can control his command, he could be a really good pitcher. And that's ever since high school when the Rockies drafted him in the first round several years back. That was the big question: can he control his command? If he can do that, he's going to be like an all-star type of pitcher. But it's just that's the big question. He struggled with that. Of course, he had his, I think he was having some mental. Illness as well. He was having some problems, and he retired. And it kind of reminds me of Daniel Bard a little bit. But not to mention Daniel Bard, he'll be back. Of course, he's recovering from an injury. He'll be back probably in the next few weeks, maybe going to the month of May as well. So. Yeah, again, I think there's a bunch of dudes in this bullpen that's going to be fun to watch. So, yeah, they got to close out those games.
The hardest thing to do, the hardest 3 outs in a baseball game is the last 3. Um, yeah, I know. Also, the other thing, yeah, to go with Keith's point, Keith, I'm not sure you heard me mention this earlier in the recording here, but yeah, at one point the Rockies had 12 pitchers on the IL at the same time, so it is unfortunate. Guys get injured. It's tough. It's a grind. 162 game season. My one concern is, Jalen Beeks. He is the only lefty as it stands right now in the bullpen, with Evan Justice getting assigned to minor league camp. So it'll be interesting to see how, again, with the rules, you can't go lefty and then bring a guy in for the righty and then go back and forth between this with the new 3 batter minimum rule. But it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. Going back to my earlier point if I had to go with the bridge guys, I mean, Kinley's an option, Bird's an option. Again, it's nice to see Molina. He's going to make the roster this year. And again, Victor Vodek, I don't think he's making the roster this year. Did they announce that or did they not? Or is he still on the he's still part of the cuts, I think. I'm not sure. I don't think I saw it, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't checked up on that, but
either way, but they do have options, and it is going to be interesting because, like I said, it is tough to hold down leads, especially considering they're going to be facing the offenses they're going to be facing. You got the Dodgers, you got the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and hey, the Giants are not necessarily they're not a slouch by any stretch of the imagination, even though they're not as formidable as the Dodgers are or as high profile. They're with that offense. Or they have the big names, but hey, it's going to be a challenge. It is going to be a challenge for these young guys, and well, not just young guys, but guys who are even veterans trying to find their niche roles on a team, because that's mostly that's what a couple of these guys specifically are. But we'll see. I mean, they're going to be given their opportunities, like you said. In a transition year, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, whether it's innings to pitch, at bats. There's going to be opportunity. So for the guys who are still either fringe guys on the roster or guys looking to find their role, there's going to be chances. So just got to take advantage of those opportunities. And we'll see. Can this bullpen be more kind of nose to the ground and really get the outs when they matter. And also, especially in high leverage situations, because they're gonna because the biggest a big challenge in my eyes is always when a reliever comes in, whether he's a veteran or rookie in a high leverage situation, whether it's man on first and third, you got a runner, only a runner on second, bases loaded even. We'll see how they do in that. It's gonna be I'm very intrigued to see how they do in those situations coming forward because like I said, they're gonna hit them in those opportunities.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, um, if they can have a better bullpen, they're going to get more wins. That's pretty simple. Of course, like again with injuries, because again, like last year, there were so many injuries, and like Keith pointed out, I feel like a lot of people just didn't pay attention to the Rockies, especially on the East Coast. It's like, well, your entire roster is bad. Well, not the case uh, necessarily, because I mean, you had Marquez out, you had Senzatella out, you had Daniel Bard out for a lot of the part of the season because of his mental health, which is very, very important. And of course, he just had somewhat of a down year. But yeah, I mean, injuries they suck, and they affect your games dramatically and your record dramatically. I mean. I feel like again, health is the key not only to the pitching but to the roster as well, which is now what we're going to get into. Because like we started out with the podcast, I feel like you know if Nolan Jones, let's just say the injury yesterday would have been much worse. Let's just say he bows on his kneecap. That's potentially season-ending surgery or an injury, because if he breaks a bone or breaks his kneecap, um, maybe that would be multiple months, if not an entire, season, a worst case scenario. But, um, Nolan, I think Nolan said yesterday that uh, right after that happened, he fell to the ground, obviously tried to walk back to the dugout. He barely could walk. He said that his first reaction was like, I thought this was like basically season ending. I thought I was done for. This is worst case scenario. I thought I broke something, and thankfully that wasn't the case. But if you're talking Nolan Jones out for the rest of the year, you're looking at easily a 100 loss team for the Rockies, unfortunately. But fortunately, the good news is that he's not going to be on the injured list as far as we know, because again, Thomas Harding came out with a report saying that he should be able to play opening day. As a matter of fact, he might even be able to play tomorrow or the last game against the Brewers of spring training. So again, that's positive. But again, you can't lose a guy like Nolan Jones to injury. You can't lose a guy to Tovar with an injury, because there's not a lot of. I mean, you do have some depth in AAA with Coco Montez, and then you have Aaron Shunk, but there's so much hype around guys like Tovar, right? And so you can't really afford guys like that to have these injuries. And yeah, so and then not to mention Brenton Doyle. I mean, Gold Glove center fielder. The Rockies need his defense, and of course, we need that bat to come around, because last year he was arguably one of the worst offensive outfielders in baseball. That needs to come up. Strikeouts need to drop, and we've seen a good spring from him so far. That's very, very exciting and very promising to see. It's just that they need to cut down on strikeouts, which is huge, because I know Hensley Mullins. I know, I think Thomas Harding came out with an article earlier. Was it last week or this week? Talking about strikeouts and how the Rockies are, embarrassed how much they struck out last year, and so that needs to change. But yeah, a bunch of the guys on this roster, they just can't afford to get injured, especially Chris Bryant, because we're paying him a lot of money, and we've talked about this a million times before. But the Rockies, they can't afford that, because Bryant is a formidable player. I mean, he's won so many accolades: World Series MVP, Rookie of the Year, and not to mention you need to have some veterans to build around that core with Blackman and Bryant, and I don't know. So not to mention, I saw somewhere that I think. Blackman said that he would like to play a couple more years, so that'd be pretty cool. I know a lot of people are like, rooting for like Zach Bean or Hunter Goodman to kind of get that spot for Blackman. But you know, Blackman, he's still a good hitter. I mean, I think he's hitting over 300 this spring. So I mean, I know it's spring training, but the Rockies, they need some of these guys, or a lot of these guys, to stay healthy, and because as long as you're healthy, you're going to have a much better year, rather than having half your roster injured on the IL, and you're losing 100 plus games. So I think, if as a Rockies fan, I think my ceiling and floor for the Rockies, I think the ceiling for me would be 70 to 75 wins. That's my ceiling. I think for the Rockies. If it clicks right for them, which I know over the last few years it haven't clicked very well for them as a team, as a whole, as an organization. But I think if things click the right way, or if most of the things click with the with the roster, with the offense, the pitching, I think this team is going to make a drastic change in terms of win total. I think it's going to go anywhere from 70 to 75. I don't think necessarily we're going to see a Diamondbacks type of team. I think I mean, it's very hard to do. I mean, like 2007 will never happen again. Sorry, Rockies fans, but that will never happen again. But I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. But if the Rockies were going to have a Arizona Diamondbacks type of year, it's probably going to be next year or 2026 or something like that. But I do think that the ceiling for this Rockies team is going to be right around 70 to 75 wins. The floor is if things go to crap, right? Things just fall down. Players get injured. It just things go to mess, right? I think worst case scenario, the floor for this Rockies team would be probably around 50 to 55 wins. I think that's a good win total to put them at. I think that's the floor, and obviously we don't want that to happen. And I think the Rockies are going to be much better than that. So overall, it's a young roster. The Rockies originally had one of the oldest rosters just a couple years ago when they had guys like Randall Grichuk, C.J. Cron, but now I think the Rockies are ranked one of the youngest teams in baseball, which is good because that's the way you want to go through your rebuild, right? So the Rockies they're in a much better place and things are going to get better. But right now it's just like it's going to be another bad year, but I think there's a lot of positives to look forward to, especially with like with the core that we have and that we're extending, and hopefully Nolan Jones is next, right? We're waiting for that Nolan Jones extension, and so like fingers crossed that can happen, and who knows? It would be awesome if like the Rockies just announced Nolan Jones extension tonight, because I think our minds would be blown, but it would be super exciting to see that happen. But Mr. Vallejos says in the comments, hot take: if this team stays healthy, they clinch. Hey, that would be awesome. That would be yeah. Yeah, I mean that would be perfect. And we get to celebrate, laugh in the face of Dodger fans and all those East Coast fans saying that we couldn't make it. But I love that prediction, Mr. Vallejos. And then we have Keith replying, agreed. I'm saying 87, 85, 77. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean it's possible. I mean anything's possible. I mean it's baseball, right? I mean was it 2006 or 2007 when the Rockies had that crazy opening day start and the Rockies had a bunch of rookies on their team, and you never know what's going to happen in baseball. I mean, last year if you would have told me that the Diamondbacks were going to the World Series and just a couple of wins away from winning it, I would have said no way, no shot, right? So you never know. I mean, that's the exciting thing about baseball. That's why we do this. That's why Tom and I do this. We love baseball. You never know what could happen. I mean, the Rockies, they could do something crazy, but I mean, it's probably not going to happen. But you never know. We're just going to hold it there. But there's a lot of hope. We'll just go with that. And I know that a lot of us can agree that the front office, has done a better job, but there's still some stuff that needs to be fixed, especially with the ownership. But the Rockies, they're in a much better place than a lot of teams like the Angels, the Athletics, and some of these teams that are losing on purpose and getting rid of their star players basically for nothing. And I know what happened a few years ago with Nolan Arenado, but I feel like with the newer front office that the Rockies have had and brought in some new scouts, new people into that front office, I think the Rockies are trending in the right direction. And the Rockies don't know that. It's not that they're stupid. The Rockies, they know that, and they're trying to build a foundation, a winning culture. And that's one thing that a lot of people have talked about this spring is that there's a lot of positivity, a lot of good vibes in the Rockies clubhouse. So that's always great to see. So I think there's a real good chance that the Rockies do improve from last year, from losing 103 games to, I don't know, maybe they win, anywhere from 70 to 75 wins, maybe even more. I don't know, maybe 80. So that's my thoughts.
Well, the way I look at it is is probably going to be a tough year. I did put out this on Twitter X. This could be a frustrating year, but rather it's a season that'll be frustrating, but we'll have a lot of optimism when it's over. Again, I do love the optimism, Sir Vallejos and Keith. Positive vibes only here. We do appreciate it. We're always trying to stay optimistic about this whole thing. That would be awesome if they did get a wild card spot. Hey, I'd be singing from the rooftops of my house, but or not singing. Probably no one wants to hear me sing. I'd probably just yell in excitement from the tops of my roof. But no, when you compare, to use your example, Stephen, when you compare us to teams like the Oakland A's or the Angels, again, this is me outside eye looking at them. Again, it's easier to judge the Athletics than the Angels. They just, to me, they just don't seem to have a direction. We have a plan, and yes, Keith, I also do believe in Bill Schmidt a lot more than I really had little to no faith in Jeff Bridich. So again, ancient history, we can just discard that to the side there. But Bill Schmidt does have a plan. Again, he's a man who's direct. When you hear him in interviews and media sessions and press conferences, he's not a man. He's not necessarily a man of few words, but he's more direct to the point, and he knows he's more a guy who likes to take action than talk about things, which is something I like about him. So they have a plan. Bud Black, if the extension talks with Bud Black are true, I think we ought to. Some people are down on it because they tartar the fact that he has had losing seasons. Well, it's not his fault. They've been rebuilding for the past couple of years. He's during his years here, he's been rebuilding for most of the time. And plus it shows when he has a contending team, he does have the ability to take team to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So it is definitely great to see. And of course, this core is starting to take shape. But the core is starting to definitely take shape, and with this extension of Tovar, and hopefully Nolan Jones, fingers crossed on that one. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot to look forward to once the season's over. I think I agree with you. The ceiling is 75 wins. The stretch goal would be 80. But again, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think again it's gonna be a rough year. No way around it. I mean, it's like I'm not expecting this season to go pretty. I mean, like you might have injuries, you might have problems with your pitching bullpen, like we've been talking about. I mean, like last year, there was a lot of good pieces in that bullpen. Brent Suter, we got Pierce Johnson, right? There was a lot of, I guess, exciting pieces in that bullpen. It just didn't work out the way it should have been. I feel like, but again, a lot of had to do with injuries. Like I mentioned, Daniel Bard had that. He had his mental health problems. And that's always tough too because I mean it's a tough game. Especially with Bard, he's experienced that before. But I think with where the Rockies are at right now, again, it's all about building that core. And again, there's a lot of prospects that are coming up through AAA. They're already there, or at least going to be in AAA at some point this season. Zach Veen, he's going to be starting the year in AA. Adele Amador, he'll be there as well. So a lot of these guys, they're I feel like they're going to get their shots at AA, and then maybe after the season starts, if they go on a hot stretch, they're going to get called up to AAA. So again, it's going to be another, like we've talked about, it's going to be another rough season. But I am expecting some sort of, somewhat of a regress. Not a regress, more of what's the word? Bounce back type of year for the Rockies, to where they're starting to climb up to where they were kind of like in 2015, 2016. And, Chase Dollander, like Tom pointed out in our notes, he's going to be so excited. I mean, we saw him, was it a week ago? Yeah, and like we saw him a week ago in the breakout game, right? And he, at first it was like, ooh, he had some nerves because he himself kind of said that he was kind of nervous, which is to be expected. But he then got out of it with a double play and only pitched one inning, which is fine. I mean, it's to be expected. I mean, they were only going to allow him to pitch once, but I mean, Chase Dollander, he might be able to get through Double A by the end of this year, maybe in Triple A. I don't know, but I'm not saying it's going to be and I'm not going to say he's going to be Paul Skeens, but I just feel like Dollander. I mean, he's number 2 on the Rockies prospect board for a reason, right? And I feel like he's going to be a real big piece. He's going to be a part of that rotation. And yeah, I mean, the Rockies, like we said, they still need pitching, but Dollander, he's going to be a big guy. And of course, I think one of the big things is that he kind of said recently is that he doesn't want to put too much pressure on himself because, a lot of people have kind of compared him to Jacob DeGrom and just the way he pitches, the way he looks, his tenacity. But for Chase Dollander, he's like, you know what? I don't need to be Chase Dollander. I don't need to be Jacob DeGrom. I just need to be Chase Dollander. I just need to be who I am. And I feel like a lot of people have said, including I think the Rockies farm director Chris Forbes, who was on Drew Goodman's podcast recently. He was talking about how a lot of these prospects, they kind of want to make an impression, right? They want to be like, hey, I want to be this guy, where they kind of try too hard to make that push to the big leagues, or they might try to make they kind of try to impress them too much. That's the word. So for Dollander, he just needs to be himself, because if he can do that, and if he can kind of forget what happened in his last year in Tennessee, where he regressed a little bit. He struggled, but he was still decent. I mean, Tennessee went far in the playoffs in college baseball, for those who watched. But Dollander, he's going to be a big part of this Rockies team moving forward and part of the rotation. And who knows? We could see him, in Double A, maybe in Triple A by the season's end. I don't know. Maybe if things go crazy enough, he could make his debut at the end of the season, kind of like what John Gray did in I believe 2015. He, I think, made his debut in August or September, and so that could be the scenario with Chase Dollander. Um, Most likely, I have him starting in Single A with Spokane, maybe for one start, and then getting to Double A. And but I'm very high on him. Sean Sullivan, another guy who they drafted last year, he kind of has that. A little bit of a funky delivery, and then Carson Palmquist, another guy to keep an eye out. So, yeah, like I said, it's sad to see Joe Rock go to Tampa, who a lot of people saying don't trade pitchers to Tampa Bay, because they're going to become Cy Young winners. But again, happy for Joe. He's going to do well. But the Rockies, they still have pitching. It's just that it's a little bit further down. They're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And the Rockies, one of the worst things that you can do in the history of baseball and the history of the sport, you do not want to rush your rebuild, because it's happened before. A lot of teams rush the rebuild and it just falls apart, right? And they have to do it all over again, and sometimes it takes even longer for them to do that. The Rockies, they do not need to rush this rebuild. Take their time, develop their players. Do not rush their call-ups. And listen, I know some players have an exception, like Nolan Schanuel, I think, for the Angels. He got called up, was it like a month or two after he got drafted, right? So, or something like that. He was called up shortly after. But there's a lot of hype around the farm system, and again, it's crazy that ESPN ranked them so low. It was like in the bottom. It was like in the bottom like 20. It was like 21st or something like that. It was kind of weird to see, because then they made a post about the spring breakout and how the Rockies had the top 10 best spring breakout roster. I'm like, hold on. So you're saying that the Rockies have one of the worst farm systems, but you're saying that they have one of the best spring breakout rosters when they have a lot of their good prospects. That doesn't make sense. But anyways, there's prospects down there. They're starting to get ready. They're going to be coming up the next year or two. Some of them we might even see, sometime this year. Jordan Beck is a guy to keep an eye out, because again, he won the Abby Greer Award just today and winning the MVP for spring training, and that kind of tells you that he's kind of getting ready to make his debut. And I think he had a very good impression in spring training this year. So I'm excited to see what he does. Again, Fangraphs, I think, has him starting in AAA. But yeah, I agree with Keith here. He says, I love Dollander. Plus, didn't the Rockies have decent luck with? Yeah, I mean, Todd Helton. I mean, Tom, we both know, Todd Helton came from Tennessee, and Jordan Beck too. I mean, Jordan Beck also a Tennessee Vol. So I feel like the Rockies, that's like the secret sauce. I feel like go to Tennessee, find your players, and just do that. So I feel like that's what they need to do. And so again, Keith, thanks for that reminder there. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait for Dollander. He looked great, but again, like we talked about, and we're going to end here in just a second, and we'll give Tom his final thoughts, what he'd like to share if he has any final thoughts. But I guess my final thoughts are: this is going to be a rough year. Don't think that this is going to be a magical run year for the Rockies, because again, this is not going to be like a 2007 year. However, that would be extremely fun. Like I agree with Tom that we would be dancing on our rooftops if that were to happen, and just like screaming, yelling, whatever expletive you want to do. Yeah. But like it's going to be a bad year, but I think the things to look forward to is going to be the prospects, the young players, Tovar, especially with that new contract of his, and Nolan Jones. Thank God he's going to be healthy to start the year. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited about. I mean, again, the Rockies, they have a plan. Bill Schmidt has a plan, even though there might be some scratches on your head. And it's like, why did the Rockies make that move? Like today, it's a little bit questionable with the Jake Cave signing, or I should say the trade, but it kind of makes sense because he's going to be the depth piece, and actually he's had good numbers at small points in his career. I mean, he is 31, 32 years of age. He was with the Phillies last year, so but you know what? There's guys in AAA that can back him up. But and I guess we'll answer this one from Keith as well. Hot take: Quantrill and Gomber combined for 26 to 30 wins. Great podcast, guys. Look forward to following you all season. Thank you, Keith. Thank you for your support, your love. Really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you, Keith. but yeah, I guess to finish it all off for me, it's gonna be a rough year. But again, there's a lot to be excited about, especially with the prospects and some of the younger players.
Well, Key, to add to that, to throw it in there, if you add Freeland to that, I think that can go up as high as 40, 45 wins if you throw Freeland in there. But we'll see how well. I think the three of them have the potential to be the big front three of that rotation. And then again, big questions we point out earlier in the show is, what's the bullpen going to be like holding on to leads? They had a lot of blow ones last year, but that happens unfortunately with teams that are in a rebuild. So we'll see how it goes. But the one thing that I really think is going to be the big strength this team is the defense. I mean, you've got multiple Gold Glove winners and Gold Glove finalists on this roster. So I'm just excited. I think that's going to be one of the big things that's going to be to any success this team has. Continue to play sound, fundamental defense. That's going to be a key. And then, of course, if the lineup again, fingers crossed, barring good health here, just like with pitching with the position players, my hot take remains if I believe Chris Bryant can play 145 games plus if this lineup stays healthy and they can find some consistency, throughout. Nobody moves around too much. You keep guys solidified in the same spots. They could do damage. I'm not saying again. I know I don't want to sound like a big Debbie Downer, or the two of us sound like a big Debbie Downers here when it comes to it. This, you know, we're not going to be last year's Diamondbacks, but hey, we do have, like I said, I believe if everything goes 100% right, they could win close to 80 games, which would be amazing. And then, of course, if that happens, there's going to be a lot of optimism about next year and the years going forward. Because if we reach that win total, that means again the defense was sound, offense came together, and the pitching started to really limited the damage when it came to starts and also late in games. And that means also the core is starting to take shape. And the next year's free agent class, we will go through that again at a later podcast down the road because we're not even near talking about free agency for 2025 yet. But there's a pretty good class for next year. Even despite Zach Wheeler being taken off the market for next year with his extension with the Phillies. There's still a lot to look forward to. What else can I say here? Final thought. That's really all when it comes to it. I mean, of course, keep an eye out for us. We're going to be talking all season long, positive vibes only. We're going to remain optimistic and keep your eyes out because we, of course, got some new episode types, new episode category coming out that is going to come after each game. Steven, go ahead and explain more of that when we get to that. But yeah, keep coming back, guys, because we got our official episode category called, I'll deliver it for you. It's called the Rockies Recap. Why don't we go ahead and explain that one?
Yeah, so like again, we kind of iterated the past couple podcasts right at the end. So starting on Thursday, opening day, we're gonna do a Rockies review. So we're gonna do every single game. We're gonna not together. However, there might be times where we might have an emergency podcast for
Sure.
contract extensions, kind of like this. And it's kind of like because I was kind of I was talking to Tom right before we started. But it's kind of like funny how we were gonna record today because we had audio issues yesterday, and we're it's a little bit better today. We're still having a little bit of problems, but hopefully that should be fixed sometime this upcoming week because I just ordered a new microphone and a new headset. So hopefully this should it should work. But anyways, we're gonna have what they call Rockies review. So basically, at the end of each game, we're gonna be at least one of us will be talking about what happened, the highlights of the game for the Rockies, and that sort of thing. And it's going to be about roughly 3 to 5 minutes, and sometimes, in some cases, for some games, we'll go to maybe 10 minutes at the most. That's like the limit. So it's not going to be very long. And I think we're going to do live. I think we're going to go live. So again, if you want to say hello, drop in, you can do that. So we'll be able to do that. And so again, it will be on YouTube, it will be on Twitter, and we'll try to get on Instagram as well because I know sometimes we're kind of busy and you have to log in and everything on Instagram. So, but again, keep your eye on that. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Keith, he's got those notifications turned on. Thank you, Keith. Thumbs up. I'm so excited for the season because we're only like 4 days away from opening day. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be hectic. Word like like to use, but I think Tom's going to go first. So he's going to be covering at least, I think, the first series against the Diamondbacks.
Sure.
Then I'll be doing the series against the Cubs, and we'll go back and forth through the season. And if let's just say if Tom's busy or I'm busy, we're going to kind of switch in and fill in for that person, or if somebody's sick, that sort of thing. So yeah, we're going to be again game previews. Well, not game previews. We're going to do reviews. And then, of course, on our Instagram and our social media pages, we're going to have the lineups posted. So make sure you're subscribed to our Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Facebook. We're kind of getting into that Facebook world because sometimes Facebook can be kind of weird, and you're like,
Mm,
Facebook, whatever. But also too, we have a website. Go check us that out. I think the link should be in our Instagram bio. We're gonna try
it
to put
is.
that in our Twitter bio as well. So check out our website. We have articles coming out almost weekly. This week we didn't have any because we're kind of having our writers are kind of having their vacation. But starting this upcoming week, we're gonna have two brand new articles Monday and Friday.
Mhm.
So Keith says, last word for all the dissenters. Let's not be too hard on this team. Plenty of cities would give up a lot to have an MLB team.
Pretty
Absolutely,
much.
go Rockies. And I agree with you, Keith. With Oakland, with the situation that they're in, again, we don't want to, be here too long. But I'm thankful to be a Rockies fan. At least we have an owner that wants to stay in Denver, and he's willing to stay here. And again, he might not be the greatest owner, and he's might have made decisions that have been bad in the past. But at least Dick Monfort is not the worst owner in baseball. We'll just end there. But again, I agree with you, Keith, and in that we have a good fan base, excellent fan base, and I think there's some fans out there that are just tired of losing, and we're with you. But at the same time, though, Rockies fans are some of the best fans in baseball, and it's going to be an exciting year. So those who are watching, listening, I know some of you might not be wanting to go to the ballpark this year to watch a team potentially lose 100 games. But at the same time, though, even if it's just one game, like for me, I'm probably going to go to one game. It's kind of like a tradition. I love Rockies baseball. I just
Mhm.
love going to the ballpark. Just go out there and have fun, even though you wouldn't necessarily agree with the ownership or with the team directing. But you know what? Just go out there, have fun, enjoy baseball because summer is almost here, and the boys of summer is going to pop up at your ballpark. So make sure get your tickets before they sell out. I like to go to opening day, but of course I think it's already sold out at Coors Field. So anyways, but yeah, it's going to be a fun year. So make sure you get your tickets, have fun, and make sure on opening day, wear your baseball jersey, wear your baseball cap because opening day, by the way, Tom, should be a holiday. I don't know why it's not a holiday already.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Well, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, it's a holiday. MLB opening day is a national holiday for me. One, and for me, it lines up perfectly because the White Sox are playing in the afternoon, and the Rockies are playing in the evening. So I can watch one game, move on, watch the next game. But yeah, with those recap episodes review. So if you missed the game and you want a little bit of highlights or rundown, just tune in. We got you covered on that one, and we'll also give our personal takes. We're not going to be bombasting and say what the what was Bud Black doing there. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not going to give you that kind of a meltdown or whatever whatnot. But it's going to be fun. And again, there is reason to be optimistic. It's going to be a fun season. Um, I won't be making it out to Coors Field or to Denver this year, but there's a good chance I will be going to one of the games when the Rockies are in Chicago. I'm double checking the schedule. Bear with me for just a moment. I can't remember if they're in. Oh yeah, they are gonna be in. The Rockies are going to be in Chicago in late June on the south side of Chicago. So I'll keep you everyone posted as that game gets closer. So if you live in the Chicagoland area, or if you're a Rockies fan coming to visit Chicago, I'll let you know if I'm going to be there. Yep, yeah, exactly. I'll let you know if I'm going to be there. You can stop by, say hello to me if you're in town for one of those games. But anyway, just stay tuned, guys, because hey, Steve and I were going to be here all season. We're going to be hoping for positive vibes only. And hey, and cheers to the future and hopes for somewhat not again frustrating, but hopefully an enjoyable season.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you all so much because this kind of wraps up our off season for us because we've been kind of doing these hour type shows since the end of the season. And so again, these are not going to go away. The podcasts are not going to go away. We're going to do the Rockies reviews. The podcasts are not going away. However, we will say that they're not going to be as frequent. But occasionally we're going to have these podcasts to where we're going to talk about different topics that we want to talk about, whether it's signings, contract extensions, that sort of thing. And we might even, I think, one of the things that we might do is that maybe we'll go live at the end of opening weekend or something like that. We'll see. Again, we'll have to talk about that later. But again, for those who are listening and watching, thank you so much for your support, your love this offseason. It's been amazing. We've grown so much. Our podcast has increased by, I think, like, was it 300% last time I checked? It's been crazy. We've gotten all this following, which is awesome. Again, thank you so much for your support and your love. It really means a lot to me and Tom and everybody else in the Rockies community. And that's what we want to do. We want to build a community not only of Rockies fans, but also other Rockies pages like Blake Street Banner. We've been on their podcast. I think that podcast, I might be spoiling a little bit, but that podcast should be coming out soon. We want to create a fun Rockies community where we can cheer the Rockies together and have fun. So, anyway, folks, I think that will conclude this episode of the Rockies Now podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, follow, rate, and review all of our social media pages. We love hearing from all of our wonderful listeners. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the podcast. Have a great day, everyone, and as always, go Rockies.